It is that time of year again. It is ladder prediction season. Of course, the A-League Men's 2022-23 campaign is just around the corner. So here's my upcoming season's ladder prediction, starting off in 12th place. And actually, before I reveal this one, I do want to say that I genuinely think that any team this season in the A-League Men's competition could make it into the top 6. I think teams who finished towards the bottom last year have recruited really well and could easily surprise and knock off some of the big names who finished towards the top of the table last season. But that's the exciting thing about the A-League. You just never know. So let's jump into it. Starting in 12th place, I've got Perth Glory. And look, some might say that this is the safe choice. Obviously, they struggled so much last season. They needed to recruit, and my goodness, did they do that. They brought in a vast number of players, and of course, let a number of players go too. It's going to be interesting, though, seeing how Ruben Zadkovic, a coach with little experience in the top flight, is going to go gelling this new look squad together. Is it going to work? Look, it could. I mean, I like the signing of Ryan Williams, of Mustafa Amini. They've signed some experienced players from overseas as well, but I think it might be a task too big for Ruben Zadkovic. Again, they could surprise. I do feel for Perth Glory, though. I mean, they're having to play the first 5-6 rounds away from home. Over in the eastern states, of course, issues with, well, not issues, but simply just finding a stadium for them to play in. Of course, their usual home, NIB Stadium, HBF Park it is called now, undergoing renovations. So it's going to be another tricky start to the season yet again for the team from WA. Let's jump into 11th place now, and I've got Wellington Phoenix. Now, I put Wellington last in last season's prediction, and they ended up making the finals. I've put them bottom two, but let me explain. I mean, when you look at, they haven't gone through too much change in terms of the personnel, but there's some key players that have left, and they've brought in some replacements who, it's just going to be interesting to see how they go about replacing the quality that they have that they have lost. Josh Sotirio's gone. He was sort of the unsung hero for Wellington Phoenix last year, grabbing a handful of goals. Gail Sandoval, the mid-season signing, who was just a revelation for Wellington Phoenix and a massive part as to why they played finals football last season. And Ren Episcopo, who again missed a decent chunk of the season through injury last season. But again, it was an influential player at times as well for Wellington Phoenix, especially towards the back end of the campaign. They have brought in Steven Ugarkovic and a few players from overseas as well. But I'm worried for Wellington Phoenix, especially when you look at the recruitment and the quality that some of the teams above them possess. I'm not sure how they go about fitting into the top 6 this season. It might be a task too big for Ufuk Talay this upcoming season. But in 10th place, now this is the first maybe controversial one. And Sydney FC fans, I mean, this is your time. I'd love to hear from you in the comments section. I want to hear what you think of your team this season, because Sydney FC were one of the big talking points last year in the A-League Men's 2021-22 campaign. Obviously, they underperformed massively. I don't know, when you look at the recruitment, and I said this, you can check out my video when I talked about the recent transfer window of all the A-League sides. I wasn't that stoked with Sydney FC's recruitment. I thought when you look at the quality that they'd lost, so many decent players have departed the Sydney FC squad, which, they were right to do, but I don't feel like the replacements that they've brought in, they haven't filled the right gaps across the team. And I'm worried because of that. I'm dragging them even lower down. I don't know how they're going to go about challenging some of these teams who have recruited better and just look a bit more well-rounded. Again, I mean, who knows? Joe Lolly, Robert Mack, these new signings could turn into star signings and lift Sydney FC back into the finals. Steve Corica will certainly be hoping so. If Sydney don't make the top 6, this is the last year in charge of an A-League side for Steve Corica, that is for sure. 9th spot, we've got Brisbane Roar, and I really wanted to put Brisbane higher. I did, because I like the players that brought in. I mean, Charlie Austin, I think, is going to do well in the A-League. Ricky Danzaki is a fantastic piece of business to bring him back to the A-League. It's a bit more of a well-rounded side when you look at this Brisbane Roar team compared to last year where they finished second last. Again, though, I don't know if they're going to have enough consistency, enough quality to get enough wins to lift them into the top half of the table this season. 8th place, I've got Newcastle Jets. Again, I mean, when you look at all these mid-table sides, any of these mid-table sides could easily jump into the top 6. And again, if you watch my transfer window video, I was a big fan of a lot of Newcastle Jets' transfers over the off-season. Trent Bahagia, Josh Sotirio, McGarry, Piscopo, Brandon O'Neill. Some really fantastic players that they're bringing in to up the squad. I'm worried about the loss of Daniel Pena. That is a big one. They're going to need someone like Angus Thurgate to step up even more and fill his boots and, combined with Beckham Mikkeltadze, provide him with some chances to score some goals. If Newcastle Jets can get gelling, this new look squad can get gelling from round one, which I'm sure Arthur Papas, he has the potential to do that. If they can do that, they can certainly challenge for the top six. I'm slotting them in 8th for now, though. And just to miss out on the top six, yet again, MacArthur FC. Now, Dwight York, obviously the side has gone all the way to the Australia Cup final during pre-season, but can he do it in the A-League? I'm not sure. Again, love their signings. Daniel Arzani back with a point to prove. Anthony Carter playing up top. They've got the combination of Ulysses De Villa, Danny De Silva, Kieran Backus back in the A-League. It's a strong A-League side, but it's just unpredictable. It's one of those teams who they could finish towards the bottom. They could surprise everyone and finish towards the top. You just don't know. I'm going to say they just miss out on the top six this year once again. Speaking of the top six, let's jump into it right now. Here are the teams I think will be playing finals come May next year. 6th place. Central Coast Mariners, yes, have lost some big names in Mark Burigidi, Kyle Rolls, Lewis Miller, amongst some others, but have recruited decently well when you look at some of the players they've brought in from Portugal, some promising young players. Kelechi John has arrived at the club to play in defence. Paul Yongo playing up top alongside Jason Cummings, and of course Garang Kowal, who has been stealing the headlines for the past 4, 5, 6 months in Australian football. Central Coast Mariners, they always find a way to surprise. They've done it for the last couple of years now, where they've surprised people who continuously predict for them to finish towards the bottom of the ladder. I think this is time that we finally call Central Coast Mariners a finals contending team. That's what Mariners have turned into now. I can see them slotting into 6th place on the ladder. 5th place now, Adelaide United. Very safe choice. I will say, I should admit though, of course, if you saw my ladder prediction from last year, I predicted Adelaide to finish in the bottom 3, and again, they proved me wrong. They've got the quality of, when you've got the players like Craig Goodwin, Hiroshi Ubasuki still there as well. This is an Adelaide side who are going to win most of their games. Once again, will be strong at home. And as I sort of mentioned, they always find a way to finish in finals. So Adelaide United in 5th place, I think is a pretty safe bet for me. Here's the next interesting one though, and Western Sydney Wanderers. Oh, dude, you know what? This is exactly where I put them last season. I put them in 4th last season. And of course, they disappointed, as always, right? Is this the year? I was about to say this is the year, but I'm not even confident enough to say that. Is this the year for Western Sydney Wanderers? They've recruited so well. They've brought in so many big names. Milos Ninkovic is obviously the headline transfer during the off-season in the A-League. Can Mark Rodan get this, what is a very much a new-look Western Sydney Wanderers squad, get these players gelling together? The reason why I think they're going to finish higher than maybe some of the other teams who have done a lot of rebuilding is just because of the quality of players that they've brought in. Brandon Borello's back in the A-League as well. Oli Bazanik, a fantastic midfield signing. Western Sydney Wanderers, the team on paper, should be playing finals football. If they don't, my goodness, I don't know how we can fix Western Sydney Wanderers, but I'm expecting a big year for them, as I am for Melbourne Victory. No reason why they shouldn't be finishing up around the top 2. I've got them just sitting outside in 3rd place on the ladder. Then how's Nani going to go? That's the question for me. Don't get me wrong. He's a class player. How will he go settling in the A-League? Will he stay fit for the whole season? Those are all the questions that come up, especially when you look at he's sort of replacing a player in Marco Rojas, who was fantastic last season. Is Nani going to have the same output as someone like Marco Rojas? A couple other sort of small personnel changes here and there, of course, and goalkeeper Paul Izzo's back. So, look, it's still a very strong Melbourne Victory side, and they could easily finish first for me, but I think the other 2 Victorian sides are still just ahead of them. In 2nd place, I've got Western United, the champions from last year. I think we're very smart in the transfer window to not let any of their key players depart the club. They've brought in Tongo Dumbia. They've brought in James Troisi as well. They've strengthened in some areas, and there's no reason why they should drop down for me. Western United, of course, still under the leadership of John Aloisi. I think we'll have once again another successful season. But topping off the ladder is Melbourne City, who I've actually seen in some ladder predictions, people have dragged Melbourne City down a little bit. And I can sort of understand that. I feel like maybe this could be the end of sort of the Melbourne City era, if you like. They've made the last, 3 grand finals in a row now. Melbourne City, though, I mean, yes, they've lost Connor Metcalf, Austin Griffiths, a couple key players, Carl Jenkinson, but they've brought in some class international players who have experience. They've picked up one of the best young fullbacks in the league in Callum Talbot. I think they've replaced those key departures really, really well. And for me, look like an even stronger squad compared to where they were last year when they made the grand final. That front three is going to gel even more. Now, if you remember last year, I mean, Matthew Leckie took 5, 6, 7 weeks to get going in the A-League, and then he'd really turn it on. That front three this season, man, is going to be massive. Andrew Naboot, Jamie McLaren, Matt Leckie, watch out for them. For me, Melbourne City just have far too much firepower again. They're going to finish first for me. But there is my ladder prediction for the 2022-23 season. Drop your ladder predictions down in the comments. I would love to see what hot takes you have in your ladder predictions, especially for teams like Sydney FC, like Western Sydney Wanderers. Perhaps will one of those bottom teams, jump up? Will it be Perth Glory, Brisbane Roar, Jets? Which team will surprise? Let me know down in the comments. Guys, thanks for checking out this video. My name's Lockie. This is Coastwood Football, and I'll see you guys in the next one.